What's going on, everybody? So I was reading, going back through some old reading um, that I did last year, and I have a little quote from this book that I want to read to you. It's from Hate Inc. It's by Matt Taibbi. I honestly think it should be required reading for all high school students, and every adult should read. They read like classic literary works, like Tom Sawyer. I think everybody should read it because it does such a fantastic and succinct job, really breaking down the nuances of mainstream media these days. And I think this ties in well to um, the problem, at least the problem that I see with America as a whole, and a fix to it. So stay with me here. I'm going to read to you real quick, just a little excerpt, and then some notes I took in a page previous. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so just bear with me here. After generations of doing the opposite, when unity and conformity were more profitable, now the primary product of the news media is to sell division. The problem we have is the commercial structure of the business. To make money, we've had to train audiences to consume news in a certain way. We need you anxious, pre-pissed, and addicted to conflict. Moreover, we need to bring a series of assumptions. We need you to bring a series of assumptions every time you open a paper or turn on your phone, TV, or car radio. Without them, most of what we produce will seem illogical and offensive. The trick to constantly narrow your mental horizons, the trick is, to constantly narrow your mental horizons and keep you geeked up on impotent anger. So long as the public is busy hating each other and not aiming its ire at the more complex financial and political processes going on off camera, there's very little danger of anything like a popular uprising. The trick here is getting audiences to think they're punching up when they're actually just punching sideways at other media consumers, much like themselves, who just happen to be in a different silo. Hate is a great blinding mechanism. Once you've been in the business long enough, you become immersed in its nuances. If you can get people to accept a sequence of simple, powerful ideas, they're yours forever. And now we pivot to one of my little annotations here, but maybe this is by design. Entertainment politics helps perpetuate the two-party system and gives the party in power's leadership ample room for extreme policy because it's better to vote for the good guys no matter how radical, right? So rather do that than show my support for the bad guys on the other side of the political aisle type of mindset is what really happens here. Tribalism is embedded in humans' DNA. 10,000 years ago, it was for survival. In the modern era, it's for gas pricing. Go figure. So essentially, what Matt Taibbi's talking about here, to give you a little bit of context to understand what's going on. He worked in the media, and he talks about how whenever we consume any kind of mainstream media, there's a purpose, right? They want to evoke emotion. And it's less important about facts and more about emotion because when you're already emotionally worked up, it's going to draw your attention, right? You're going to focus on that point. And you're going to keep focusing and focusing and focusing. And what happens is it's kind of like a drug addiction, right? Like you start off with just a little hit, like you see a headline, you're like, oh, that's annoying. And then it gets worse and worse to the point where all of a sudden, you've lost the plot. You're hyped up with these scenarios that may or may not even be completely true, right? And this isn't necessarily a political conversation we're going to have here today. What I'm wanting you to realize is that there's a dramatic misalignment of incentive across the board when it comes to large businesses or just businesses in general in America. And it's because of the system that we are on, the monetary system that we're on. So allow me to explain, because I know that was a lot of verbiage and it doesn't really make sense, but I want to break it down here for you. Okay. So, let's use the media for the example since we're already on it. The way that their business model works, right, is that they have to draw your attention to be able to make money, right? The longer that they have your attention and the more pissed off and emotional you are, right, they're going to make money. And the way that businesses work in America is every 90 days when you're a publicly traded business, you have to report, right, quarterly earnings. For private companies, it's a little bit different, but the idea is still the same. Every quarter, every 90 days, you have to perform better than the previous 90 days, right? It's always building upon itself. So what happens in a system where you need to be able to garner attention is you're going to have to do more and more outrageous things. And this creates a misalignment of incentives because now, rather than our news actually giving us what we go to the news for, right? Information, accurate information, we have a system where we're incentivizing content that's divisive, right? Content that's inflammatory, incendiary, right? You're getting worked up and riled up, and before you know it, your Apple Watch is telling you, hey, maybe we should sit down. And you're like, I'm laying down on the couch right and watching what's going on in the news. And this is by design. It's unfortunate, but it's by design. And I think that if people kind of understood where the incentives are for business, it would change the way that they approach consumption media, approach all different aspects of life. It's not just media. We'll get to more in just a second, but think about it like this, right? If every 90 days you have to be able to perform better than the last time, better than the last time, at some point, you're going to start reducing the quality of whatever it is you're producing. So in the media's, from the media standpoint, it's information. Maybe it's not accurate. Maybe, the headline that you chose doesn't even really like pertain to the topic that's at hand, right? If it's like food, right? Shrinkflation. You see it all the time. A package of food that used to be 16 ounces is now 12. And you'll notice the quality of the ingredients that they use. It changes, right? Sometimes you'll eat something from your childhood because you want that nostalgia bomb, and you're like, this doesn't taste the same because they're changing out, the expensive real whole food product for synthetic chemicals. Same thing in fashion. We got fast fashion. There's, endocrine disrupting plastics that they're making your clothing out of, and it's making people sick. It's making people infertile. These problems that we see are because of the fiat system. And you say, okay, well, Hunter, what are you talking about? How is that a product of the fiat system? Let me explain it to you like this. This is how I see it. In a fiat system, what do we know about dollars in fiat system? Like what we have right now. Well, we know that they're being inflated away, right? So if they're being inflated away, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So naturally, we're going to see this progression from media, from food companies, from any kind of company around you, that they're going to have to try to cut corners because that's the quickest and easiest and safest way. They're not looking and thinking about 10, 20 years down the line. They're looking quarter to quarter. Their horizon has shrunk, right? Because they're stuck on the system where $1 today is worth more than, $1 tomorrow. So they're trying to do whatever they can to make sure they can keep the juggling act going on this side of things, right? Because that dollar's inflationary. It's what works today and what was potent today. If it's not, 10% more potent come the next year, then all that revenue is lost. And now the company starts to slip backwards, and then you start seeing, people freak out. The investors are upset. The market starts to get frothy. You can see all kinds of things, right? So in a situation like this, a deflationary currency is the exact opposite. When you have a hard money, a true hard sound money like Bitcoin, think about it like this. In a deflationary environment, dollars tomorrow it's going to be worth more in the future. For a company, right? You have a Bitcoin treasury, or you're accepting Bitcoin, or you're paying your employees in Bitcoin, which we'll talk about in just a second. Everything about this negative feedback loop that happens in a fiat monetary system immediately disappears. What do I mean by that? Well, now in a deflationary environment, this money is scarce. It is finite, right? So you are going to have to compete at a higher level. If you cannot bring the high quality standard that people expect in media or your food or your clothing or whatever, people will simply go to the next best option, point blank period. And it's not incentivizing these companies to go out and try to give the most inflammatory, most incendiary, worst quality, lowest quality product, because they know that if they destroy that trust that's been built with their, consumers, their audience, that destruction is detrimental. That's stopping them from becoming an even bigger and even better company. Now their time horizon has gone from 90 days to 10 years to 20 years to 50 years to 100 years, right? We're no longer fighting for scraps and fighting for paper, worthless money, right? And like I said, I've been talking about this a lot from the producer and consumer side, right? So like the business and the way that you interact with the business. But let's take this a step further. What happens on a Bitcoin standard where the business is making money, right? In hard, finite currency, real money, right? What happens when they're making money in Bitcoin and they're paying all of their employees as well in Bitcoin? Well, you have a system now where immediately, as soon as that first paycheck hits the accounts of all of your employees, from the CEO all the way down to the janitor scrubbing the toilet on, the intern's floor, you now have a system where you have put all of your employees into the ownership class, right? Because the moment that you have something that's finite, right? Hard currency backed by proof of work, energy, right? We're talking about real deal Bitcoin here. The moment that people own something like that, that's a resource that not everybody can have. You're immediately thrust into the ownership class. Throughout American history, and in a lot of these videos that you're going to see me upload in the coming days and weeks and months and years, surely, every time that there's a crisis in America, the ownership class has a tendency to get out relatively, I'm not going to say fully unscathed, but they're often in a much better position than those who never owned anything in the first place. So you as an employer paying out your employees in a hard currency like that, this is the most powerful position that you could possibly put your employees into, right? Now your employees have something that's building them money in the background. You say, well, as a business owner, I don't want my employees to get dummy rich. I don't know why you would say that, but the quickest way to be able to build loyalty with your employees right now, if you're a Fortune 500 company, if you just happen to be a CEO of a big company and you hear me today, hear me now. Allowing your employees to become part of the ownership class through giving them or paying them in hard currency is the single biggest game-changing blessing that you could possibly do to build loyalty among your employees, period. You say, oh, but the volatility, oh, but, it's not dollars. You need to do more homework. You need to do more homework because a hard currency literally makes everybody better off. It forces you as the company to bring your A game with every single product, and it allows, right now, it allows all those employees to start operating from an abundance mindset, right? An abundance standpoint rather than a scarcity standpoint. When you're paying somebody in dollars that are losing, if we're being real, it's honestly closer to, look, the way that I look at it, whatever the S&P is tracking at, inflation's probably pretty close to it. You're beating it by a little bit, but when you just got your money invested in the stock market, in reality, it's pretty much in line. You're barely getting better off, really. You're just not becoming worse off, how I look at it. So, like, when you allow people to have that hard currency, it sees those, yes, there's times of volatility where the price drops down, but that's really more of a benefit than it is a drawback. And by the time that people realize that is the case, it's probably going to be too late for them. I just think that we have a misalignment of incentives being on a fiat system where the money is worth less and less and less day over day. And over time, what we're going to see is more civil unrest due to, divisive and incendiary content to try to drive up. And it's not just like between races, between genders, between, country to country. It's between migrants or immigrants versus, naturalized citizens versus, it's just it's across the board. You name it. You're going to see more division happen, especially as we continue to debase the currency. On top of that, right, you're going to see quality. Everybody talks about how they miss how America used to be. It's because America used to take more pride in the fact that things were produced in America, take more pride in the way that things were done because the currency hadn't been debased and they weren't constantly feeling like they were swimming against the tide, right? So you're going to notice food quality standards are going to degrade over time. Clothing, same thing. You're going to have a hard time finding clothing that's made out of materials that will not, make your lymph nodes under your armpits swell up and make you, feel sick. And, you're having all these issues with your reproductive system. Like, it's really that serious. And I don't think that anybody really is talking about it. So I wanted to open up the conversation with y'all and see if, what I'm saying is just a schizophrenic rambling, or if you guys are understanding, like, the fact that the system is built upon money that's becoming worth less and less and less, and less by the moment. It's going to require more and more and more radical and dramatic things to happen to be able to, even though there's more money in the system, it's like the biggest paradox. There's more money in the system, but somehow quality declines because people are trying to get more and more of it. But the more that they're getting is the equivalent to what they used to get, right? So it's very, loopy and trippy and confusing, but I think that this book, Hate Inc., does a great job of talking about it. Obviously, The Creature from Jekyll Island has been a fundamentally changing book. And there's still some other books in my library that I'll dig through and kind of talk about conversations that, that I thought about through reading it, or read out some of the annotations in the book. But I hope you guys understand what I'm saying here today. It's really, I don't want to make it a long drawn out video. I just feel so strongly that if people understood what was happening and put words to it, to the feeling, because I know more people than just me are feeling that the quality of just across the board, everything in America, standard has kind of just dropped a little bit, right? Over the last, couple decades. At least I've been around for almost 3 decades, and I've noticed, I remember being a kid and, being here now, it takes a lot more to be able to do the same kind of stuff that we used to be doing. So, all that to say that, listen, I know it sounds terrifying. I know that it seems like, oh, well, how do we fix this issue? In my opinion, and I think this will age extremely well, I'll come back in 10 years and react to this video, but in my opinion, getting off zero, getting yourself some Bitcoin, get yourself a wallet and store it in cold storage, and wait for 20 years. I honestly, truly believe in my heart of hearts that this is the single best strategy that you can implement for yourself, for your business, to tell your family and friends about. Like, this is the smartest way, and this is the way out, to opt out of the system, to take your dollars and freeze the purchasing power in time, right? Because everything else, the degradation of the purchasing power is just going to make everything worse. And it's not to be a doomer or, oh, no. You will be prepared. You will have something that is worth, honestly, it's worth infinite amounts. It's priceless. So, give yourself even a small sliver of something priceless. Don't get caught up in the unit bias thing. You do not have to purchase a whole Bitcoin in one go. $100 a week, if that's all you can afford. That's fantastic. $400 a month is great. That's somebody's car payment, right? That goes 10x. You can see very quickly how after a year of stacking, you're going to be in great shape. Just take the time to learn. If you feel scared, you feel nervous, you don't understand, take the time to watch the videos that I'm going to be uploading. Take the time to really study it, because if you are able to get in on it, which you are right now, it's like being on the last chopper out of mine. Everything around you can go to hell in a basket, but you and your family and the people that you care about, and, hopefully your friends even too, are going to be safe. So with that, I'm not going to talk y'all's ear off. I see I'm almost at 20 minutes. I love you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will reply to every single comment. And let's keep this conversation rolling, because this is something interesting that I don't see a lot of people talking about. But all right, I hope you guys have a great Sunday, or Monday, or whatever day it is, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are. I hope it's good. But that's all I got for you today. Until next time, peace.